next person is also on a regional level. This region was responsible for creating virtual newcomer kits. And then there was some really forensic insurance information as it applied to COVID that was sent out to all of our areas. So with that, I'm going to give you Mike O.
Hi, everybody. Mike O, Addict. Apologies. I know I was one slot ahead of where I was supposed to be. I was on my way driving home. So, yeah, I'll just get back into it. I don't know if I'm going to repeat anything that anybody else said, but I'm just going to kind of go through the process of what happened with us. You know, in March, like many of the states, particularly New York and the Northeast, we were shut down middle of March. When this happened, no groups were meeting. I mean, I was the meeting list chair for the region, recently elected, the webmaster, and I also did the insurance for the region. And in Nassau area insurance and meeting list, you know, an area within the Eastern New York region. And I was getting bombarded with phone calls. No meetings were meeting. There was no group conscience to be had. And our regional meeting is in the middle of the month. So it literally happened 1 week from when the massive shutdown started. And I went into high gear as an IT person, knowing that the solutions were out there virtually. And I started doing a lot of research into what virtual platforms were out there, what was available, what was being done already. Like, you know, a lot of times, like was said by the previous speaker, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You know, a lot of other regions were doing this. Australia had a vibrant virtual platform. There was already a virtual-NA.org. You know, they were operating, they were running, you know, their stuff, and they were running it on BlueJeans. So I looked into BlueJeans, I looked into Zoom, I looked into WebEx, and all these virtual platforms. Zoom by far has the best support for our needs. One of the reasons being, when I looked into creating what we call the virtual group starter kit, was the fact that I don't need to attend the meeting. All I need to do is facilitate it. I schedule it within the Zoom account. And I set up a password now. It's required. Back then it wasn't. I still suggested to people that they have a password because I knew about the Zoom bombing stuff that was beginning to happen. And
well, Mike, listen, tell us specifically what the newcomer packet is, because a lot of us are familiar with the platform, because I want to just kind of chunk it down.
Sure. You guys can see this slide. This is what I started doing in scheduling the meetings. Actually, let me show you a different page. This is what I had set up. We shouldn't be showing that, but this is basically what we started with. Originally, when I started, I had 3 Zoom licenses, and I got approval from region fairly quickly. And I began the process of scheduling all the groups. We offered it for free. There was no, and I understand that there's restrictions and stuff like that, you know, on some service bodies being able to do things, but as a trusted servant, there was no group conscience coming. We weren't meeting. We needed a way to carry the message, and I'm a fervent supporter of the fact that that's the purpose of the service body, is to serve the groups, to help carry the message. We were able to do this in a way that we bought 3 licenses. I asked for 3 to 6, and I started literally reaching out, contacting people I knew who ran meetings, trusted servants, putting the word out there that just call me. This is free. Just call me. We will set you up on Zoom, get you started. And I would just schedule each meeting on the variety of hosts. Now, the way I have Zoom set up, also another great feature of it, is I can interlink. If you notice here, this is one of the host licenses. This one's by me. Here's another host license, another host license. These are all the meetings running today, right now. Recovery Room is running. Back to Basics is running. Miracles happen. I can schedule and manage all of the meetings through one login. And I just start putting them on the license. Every Zoom license allows you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week of scheduling. You just can't overlap a single license twice. So on Monday night, if you got 5 groups that want meeting space, if they overlap, you got to get 5 licenses. But you could share that license for the meetings on Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Thursday night, so forth and so on. And by doing that, the cost per meeting went down as low as 33 cents for a 2 to 3 hour meeting. We finally settled on a term of $3 as a suggested donation by the groups if they wanted to pay for the Zoom service, rather than them all running out, buying their own Zoom accounts, having to deal with the security settings, having to deal with this, that, and the other thing, turning off this, that, and the other thing. Left it to people who understood how to do these things. The group, all they do is they call me, they schedule a meeting, I give them the meeting ID, I give them the password, and I give them a unique feature, which I'll show you here, in the profile of every license. Okay, there is something called a host key. The host key allows a meeting, as long as it's joined before host, waiting room must be off, and like I said, now a password must be enabled. You join the meeting with the meeting ID, you put in the password, there's no host in the room. And there is a special button that, where is it? There it is. There's a special button that appears at the bottom of the participants window when there's no host in the room of a scheduled meeting. Click claim host, and you give them this 6-digit ID. After that, beyond training people how to share a screen and teaching people, I've taught 70-year-old grandparents and the younger generation who still weren't that comfortable. I trained a whole bunch of people. My phone was nonstop through April, but now it runs itself for the most part. All I have to do is give them the meeting ID, the password, and the host key to the trusted servants, only the trusted servants that are going to be hosting the Zoom meeting. They log in at their scheduled time. They start their meeting up, become a host, make co-hosts, share the screen, put the readings up. As was said before, I also created resources like virtual readings, key tags, and there's a timer card thing in there somewhere too, so you can display that stuff on your screen and share screen. So I did all this stuff right away. I didn't wait. It was imperative to me that we get groups up and running, and we've been very successful. We had, right now, currently, we have over 80 meetings a week running, approximately 60-something groups. I believe we're on that. I have to do an audit. It's been like a month or two since I did it. The calculation now.
Listen, Bob has a quick question because I want to take questions. I'm running slightly over. So let me just take this question from Bob, and then you can kind of wrap that up. Go ahead, Bob.
Quick question. When you're sharing the license thing, I was just curious because I just got involved with something like this. Say if you have a meeting that's scheduled at 8 o'clock, and then say you have another meeting that was scheduled from 6:30 to 8 o'clock, and with the people being able to join before the host, does that create a conflict there, like two people being on the same? Is it an overlap of meetings if it allows people to join into the meeting before the actual end of the other meeting?
Yeah, let me go over that. That was more of an issue at the very beginning. And also when I did the scheduling, I never scheduled a meeting without at least a 15-minute gap. Okay, so if you see here, this license right now, you guys are still seeing the screen. So this one is on host Elisa W, right? It runs from 4:15 to 6:30. It's still going on. If you look down here, In Out of the Cold is scheduled for 7:30 to 9 o'clock on Elisa W, the same licensed host. So I just tried not to butt them up too closely together. I left some flexibility. If you had an early evening meeting and a late evening meeting, you could do it, but don't butt them up together. And I gave every meeting a 2-hour block, even if it was an hour and a half, 15 minutes before, 15 minutes after. Now, at the beginning of the process, there was an issue with people coming into a meeting room and staying in the room after time. There was a workaround procedure, which still is effective. If you dial the telephone number of Zoom and you put in the meeting ID and you enter the host key, you can break open a meeting that is being blocked by another meeting running. but you don't need to do that much anymore. Zoom implemented back in May or June, I think it was, they implemented a timeout. If somebody's sitting in a meeting room for longer than 40 minutes, I think it is, with no activity, they get kicked out. And that's all it really was. And sometimes you had people just hanging out in the room, forgot to log off, turn off the computer or whatever. That problem has not happened in months and months from that, you know, since I had any kind of issue. But I also had a workaround for it.
So Mike, you also did this with regional subcommittees as well, right? You scheduled and mentored
Correct.
on the regional subcommittees.
Yeah, I kept the groups on a set of licenses. I kept the service committees on a license. The region had its own Zoom account prior to COVID, and we only really used it for a couple of different things. I mean, mainly Wilvina used it, you know, for workshops and stuff like that. So I use that specifically to schedule all service-related meetings, Queens area service, Nassau PI, anybody who asked for it. Once again, put the word out to all the areas, put the word out there. I said, listen, we're offering it for free. Call us. We'll give you a scheduled slot. You don't got to buy your own Zoom account. Like I said, the cost now per meeting, and because we have over a 10 licensed host account, we get 300 participants per meeting, which is now large meetings. And it only costs 60 something cents, maybe even down to 50. Like I said, I got to do an audit for a 2 to 3 hour meeting per week. Suggested donation, $253 a month per group. If they're doing 7th tradition and they can do it, you know, and they can make the donation. And we're doing virtual donations too. Another very important thing to set up. It took us a couple of months to get that done at the region. We did get it done. We can accept Venmo, PayPal, and now credit cards on our website, donations from groups, areas, or members. It just works. I mean, I understand some people are uncomfortable with this, but it's our only option, to be honest, in a lot of situations. You know, New York was shut down. We're opened up a little bit now, but even though, I'll stipulate this too, even though we're opened up now in New York in a lot of ways, churches don't want us meeting. Like, I mean, I would say 80% of the group representatives that I've spoken to, when they call the church and ask, can we start meeting again? The church says no. Maybe like 20, 25% of the churches have even started to allow in-person meetings.
So Mike, listen, in like the 2 minutes you have remaining, can you just quickly explain the insurance dilemma with churches that were asking people to sign waivers, like in the last 2 minutes, because that actually has not been addressed at all?
Okay, yeah, with the insurance end of things, when I spoke to the broker and stuff like that, they're not going to cover anything COVID related. They're looking for legal liability in the government end of things. But the bottom line is that our insurance coverage is not going to cover anything COVID related. So if you go, you know, into a facility, the only thing that's going to be covered is the standard liability. If you break something, you know, cause a fire because you had a coffee pot on, but we really can't even make coffee right now. So, you know, that stuff would be covered, but the COVID related stuff wouldn't be. So if you come into a facility and they're asking you to sign a liability waiver, I highly recommend you do not, because you're taking on personal liability for anything that happens in the meeting. Potentially, you could get sued if somebody gets sick in a meeting. I know some people think that's ridiculous, but it will happen. And the liability, the waivers that I have been okay with, and I have spoken to our lawyer at this region about this, were waivers of personal responsibility, I'll call it. These were things that the churches asked people to sign that basically said, I'm not feeling sick. I have been tested or haven't been tested recently, and kind of stuff like that. And you sign it and you give it in. You know, to let them know, like, yeah, I'm you know, coming in, and I guess I think one of them said something like, you know, I promise to wear a mask and do all that stuff too. So yeah, our insurance rates didn't go down. I'm going to be switching carriers next year because I'm very unhappy. They wanted to take the full amount of money for our old style insurance, which we're really not using as much anymore. Right now we have maybe 20 in-person meetings. We're at 20 locations throughout the entire Eastern New York region. That's a rough guesstimate, maybe 30. But we used to be like close to 200 churches and facilities. And that's what our insurance was based on. Back in May when our renewal happened, they did not give us a break. Yeah, not happy, but that was their policy.